Hi, my name's AnnMarie Pryke, and I am your host for today's Second Act Mamas podcast, a place where women in the second act of their life can come together and talk and laugh, admonish, support, encourage, all the things of everything that the second act of life has to throw at you. So help me welcome today's guest, Ashley Bagni. I'm so excited to have you on this show. Ashley is a certified health coach. She owns and operates Thrive Health Coaching. How long have you been doing that?
2 years.
2 years.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
She's a wife, a mom of two, and just like a hilarious, wonderful person. Like I really enjoyed getting to know you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I thought it'd be fun to start with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll see. I'm not very spontaneous, so we'll see how rapid fire
That's
goes.
okay. So some of them are like silly, some of them you
Okay.
like can think about, whatever.
Okay.
And all of them have to do with like certain aspects of a second act.
Okay, great.
Women in the second act. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay. So when going on a date with your hubby, do
Mhm.
you choose romantic candlelight dinner or Netflix and pizza?
Wherever my kids aren't.
That's the funniest answer yet. So how old are your kids?
10 and 7.
So they still need a babysitter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if we're doing Netflix, it's not a date because they're also watching, and then we're watching an animated movie. My husband like really is over animated movies at this point.
So do your kids watch the same animated movie over and over again?
Yes. And I think that's kind of genetic and my fault because I used to do that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like Pippi Longstocking and the South Seas. This is VHS for you people who are youngins. And
The audience gets it though.
Yeah. For us regular folks. And I would just watch it over and over. But my parents had to go to the local video store, which wasn't Blockbuster.
Oh yeah, it was
We
like
were
a
not
mom and pop.
cool
Yeah.
enough to have a Blockbuster.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have to re-rent it every week.
That's how I was with Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
I watched the mess out of Little Mermaid.
Over and over.
Mm.
Yes.
Okay, so when going on a trip, do you
Mhm.
pack your whole closet or travel light?
Ooh. I probably pack my kids' whole closet because, of course, I pack everybody.
Yeah.
My husband's.
Yeah. Do you pack your husband's?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. I was going to
He
say,
packs, he
I've
packs
never
about
done
10 minutes before we leave.
That's-
And I always say, oh, that's nice that you could do that.
Yeah.
Yay.
It's usually the night before. Austin is very last minute night before.
Yeah.
And I mean, up until, I don't really know. I packed for the kids too. And then I was like, why am I doing this?
Yes.
But I still, this
Yeah.
is so bad because my kids are older, but I still send them a text like a
Mhm.
week before the trip of like, this is where we're going. This is what you'll need. And then whatever.
Yes. If I let my kids pack, I mean, we would go across the world with stuffies,
Yeah.
Legos,
Yeah.
and, like no underwear,
Maybe a pair of shorts,
maybe.
flip flops.
And then, of course, somebody would say, well, why didn't you pack me my stuff?
Oh,
So,
yeah.
This
Mhm.
is what I
I've heard
get.
that too.
So it's probably I don't pack very much for me, but I probably overpack for them.
Sure. And my issue, because I have a tendency to overpack for myself, but my issue is I'm so finicky with what I want to wear from day to day.
Right.
How am I supposed to know what I'm going to want to wear?
Right.
A week
Or
in
what if you
advance.
don't feel like that?
Right. What if you, right.
Or
It's
what
a
if
thing.
you're like feeling like puffy and fat and you don't want to wear those pants?
100%. 100%. How do you know?
You don't.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the mystery of life.
So what is one aspect of motherhood you find the most joy in?
Ooh. I think it is like watching them experience life through their little eyes.
Oh, yeah. That's sweet. Mhm.
Like the first time they do things or see things, and I just like I just love watching them do that. And I'm gonna cry,
No,
but
I
I'm a
love that.
crier, so watch out.
I am too. So I used to fight that part of my, I mean, it's ingrained into my character, like personality.
Right.
I used to fight it like tooth and nails. And as I've gotten older, I'm just kind of like, I just embrace it now. Like it's who I am. You either like it or you don't. Like I can't help it.
I'm just gonna cry. Sorry.
I'm just going to cry. Yeah. Happy, sad, frustrated.
Yeah. It's
Mad.
just all happening.
It's all happening. Okay. Okay. So what is one aspect of motherhood you find the most challenging?
I think it's the realization that your old life before kids you're never going to go back to that.
Yeah.
You're never, because I think when you first have kids, or okay, maybe I was just delusional, but when I first had my son, I thought, okay, we'll get through this period, and then, I'll be able to do this Y, Z again. And it to me is realizing, oh wait, like I'm not in a bad way, but like I don't ever want to do that again. So then, like, what do I do now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just explained the last 2 or 3 years of my life, honestly.
Right?
Because who I was how old was I when I was 27 when I had my first pregnancy, 30 when I had my daughter. Who I was then is not the same at all of who I am now, of what I value, what I interest, like all of the things, what I'm even good at anymore.
Right.
So 100%, like it's about the moving forward, right? Like
I think if I'm reflecting on it, I think the best way to explain it is like understand. I think the hardest part is not the block and tackling of doing all the things and like them not listening to you and you tell them to pick up the same thing 15 times.
Yeah.
It's trying to understand who you are now.
Yeah.
Because
apart from being a mom.
Right. Like,
yeah.
Like this new person.
Yeah.
And then, once once you figure it out, then the kid's in a whole different phase of their life.
Yeah.
And then you got to figure it out again.
Well, and you have to figure out how to it's almost like as their season of life changes, your season of mothering changes.
Yes. And then
you have to relearn it. Yeah. So you have to relearn how to, and each kid, at least in my experience, each kid requires a different mother.
Yes.
So like you have to learn to be two different people.
Yeah.
Truly. Like, and then you have to feel like, well, who am I apart from being a mom? And it's
especially if your kids are very different. Because my kids are very, very
my kids 100% could not be more different if they tried. If I orchestrated it.
Right. Me either.
Yeah.
And they're also different sexes.
Yeah.
So that
same.
also makes them different too.
100%. My oldest is my boy, Luke,
Yes.
and then my youngest is Savannah. It's 100%. They're so different.
Yeah. So there's that. I think it's just that trying to figure out like what it is. Like, who am I? As I this is like I'm just not the same person. Yeah. And I think more you understand, or at least I have come to understand the science behind the physiological changes, the brain changes. Like it makes sense.
Yeah.
But there's no manual.
No.
So
and it's not easy. There's nothing easy about, even if it if you can explain it, it doesn't, not excuse it, but it doesn't seem to help. Like you can logically explain it, but it doesn't pierce the heart of like the issue. You know what I mean?
You're like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is one new skill or hobby you've always wanted to learn?
How to speak Italian.
Cool. Yeah. Why Italian specifically?
I don't know. I like the way it sounds. It sounds very superficial. It's not anything super deep.
Yeah, who cares?
My husband's family is Italian. Okay. And so I would just love to connect with that and connect that with my kids and their heritage. And
Does he speak Italian?
No, my sister-in-law speaks fluent Italian.
Awesome. Have you ever been to Italy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I did, when we went to Italy, I loved Italy. So I just, for some reason, I feel a kindred connection with it, but I can't explain it because I am in no way Italian, other than I married one.
Who cares? Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Duolingo, I'm telling you, it's great for like every day, every now and then to like pull it up and like practice.
I know. So
there's Babbel. There's another one too.
Yes, I tried doing Babbel. I wasn't friends with Babbel.
Yeah, well,
Babbel and I weren't friends.
Yeah, technology and I aren't really friendly.
I need more old school. Like, give me a book, let me read it.
What's the original?
Oh, yes, I know what you're
starts with an R, right?
Something Rosetta Stone.
Yes, okay.
Aging Ourselves.
Can you still do that? I don't know.
Probably, but it's probably on an app.
Yeah, probably. You're probably right. So I don't know if the last one applies. So if it doesn't, you don't have to answer. So what is one symptom of perimenopause or menopause that you weren't prepared for? Although I guess it doesn't really make, because you actually do this for a living, so you're probably prepared for all of it. Okay, so what's the most challenging if you've...
Oh, I have one I wasn't prepared for because I didn't know it was a symptom, and I thought, but like a metallic taste in your mouth.
You are the first person to confirm that I have that all the time. I thought I was crazy.
Yes. And I can't totally confirm, or in all fairness, I don't have a way to say this is absolutely true because my mercury level is like a smidgen high.
Okay.
Because I have a problem with eating too much seafood.
Got it.
But it's been there long enough that, yeah. But that is one symptom.
That is amazing.
Of the 60 symptoms
so many. More. So many.
And so that was a surprising one to me.
I should have had you on sooner.
I am explaining all the weird things.
I thought it was just me, or I thought like it makes me not want to drink water sometimes because sometimes when I drink water, it really comes out.
Yep.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my
I
gosh.
have it at night too. I notice it more probably because I'm just like calming down, in my parasympathetic system sort of gets engaged because I'm relaxed, and then I start paying attention. Oh my gosh, to my body.
You're amazing. That's
which
amazing.
I did not pay attention to all day long.
That's incredible. Like I don't know what to say. Like there's a lot happening in my brain.
Yeah. I am peeling the onion layers back one at a time.
Okay. Okay. So, Ashley, you are a certified health coach.
Yes.
And you run Thrive Health Coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to me a little about your business, like what you focus on, things like that?
Well, I really help busy moms understand their body so that they don't have to struggle with whatever their health goals, issues are anymore. And understanding our body, especially in this perimenopause phase, which can last, for like 10 years.
Yeah. Is that the average time?
About 10 years.
About 10.
And most women don't know that they're in it.
Yeah.
And it comes with, like I said before, a host of symptoms.
Yeah. 60
or more. And so it's hard to identify, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have strep throat because, your rapid strep test is positive.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but it doesn't, and it also doesn't look the same for every woman either. And so if you, think about the mathematical possibilities of 60 symptoms, you could have 1, you could have 2, and then all the different iterations of 60.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it's so many combinations.
It's overwhelming.
Right.
Yeah.
Like think about how many phone numbers can be made from 7 numbers in a different combination.
That's good. That's a good word
So then
picture.
you think about like, oh wait, what if a phone number was 60 numbers? And then how many combinations could you get?
Yeah.
Right. So it's a lot.
Mm-hmm. So do you work primarily with women?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have male clients?
My husband, who comes in and out of compliance.
Got it.
But I will help your husband if you want.
Okay, so you specialize in women.
Yes.
That's I figured.
Yes.
And I would think, especially for you, especially with how complex so many of the things that you talk about are, it would be wise to be more niche-y for sure. And you're a woman, so it makes more sense.
It's easier for me to understand a woman because I am a woman and connect with them, especially women who are around my age or, really any age, because I think we all go through similar things at different times. And men are not that they're not complicated in their own right, but they just don't have the complexity of hormones and things that we have. We have organs that they don't have, like uteruses and ovaries.
Yeah. I mean, men, and we love our men, but men just aren't as complicated.
No.
And they'll say they're not as complicated. No. At least in my life, the men in my life, they're not as complicated. Yeah. They have it a little bit easier for sure.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast and Dr. Lyon's podcast, and she had this. No, wait, it wasn't Dr. Lyon's podcast. Who was it? It was. Oh my gosh, I want to make sure I give the person the right credit. I'll think of it in a minute.
Yeah, that's fine.
But anyways, this doctor was on, and it was Sean Stevenson's podcast, The Model Health Show, and he had a doctor on who specializes in women and Alzheimer's, and she's a neurologist.
Oh wow!
And she was talking about the brain changes of a woman and how, we have these 3 phases: puberty, pregnancy, and perimenopause. And, men just don't have those things.
Yeah.
And so it really is, we are a much more complicated organism.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if men actually, I can't think of another huge stage of life as in puberty that a man goes through that.
My understanding is that they do have their own version of menopause.
Okay.
Where their testosterone.
No, sure.
But it's just not as pronounced.
Right.
For most men. Of
Right.
course, everybody's different and some, it can affect people all different ways, but yeah.
So when talking to women, so primarily is it women of all ages, or do you see mostly it's women?
It's usually 30 and above.
30 and above?
Yeah.
Mostly moms?
Mostly, yeah.
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 I mean, you can't do anything to your body more, I don't know, all-encompassing change. Shocking to the body as getting pregnant, carrying a baby, and then delivering that baby, and then nursing that baby.
Yes.
So it's all the things. So I'm sure that, yeah, I mean, sometimes when I look at, and I know I shouldn't do this, but sometimes when I look at like Instagram influencers, like health influencers, which I know I shouldn't look at. Anyway.
Yeah, don't look at it.
I know. So
follow me, but don't look at it.
I don't know. Like they were like, oh, I have 4 kids and I still look like I did when I was, I don't know. I just feel like that can't be the norm. And I struggle with those kind of things.
Yeah, I think that social media in the health and wellness space or the fitness space is a very tricky thing.
Yeah.
Because, you really have to know the motivation behind the person putting all that stuff out.
Yeah, that's true.
And then also their expertise.
Yeah.
And it can be challenging because it puts a visual image, and we're very visual creatures, right? So it puts a visual image in your mind of what you should be or should not be. And, the best way I can describe all of that is I was listening to somebody who was in the health and wellness space. He, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But he was talking about, he used to be a fitness model and like on the cover of magazines and fitness magazines. And he said, I get on there and I take these pictures. He's like, but building up to that, I feel terrible because what I have to do and the stuff I have to put my body through just to look like that isn't sustainable, but people don't know that.
They only see the finished product.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and he gave another example of a lot of, the celebrities on the runways or the red carpets, what they have to do to get their body in that type of shape or for like a movie or whatever is so hard on their body. It's not, they can't do it forever. And so sometimes I try to remember that when I'm seeing those things.
It's not real.
It's not real.
Or sustainable or healthy.
No, I mean, nobody's like taking pictures of the cellulite that they have on their butt and
totally
like, welcome to Tuesday. Do you know what it looks like Wednesday? So,
I mean, like an offshoot, I saw, this is about a man and whatever, but I saw Henry Cavill give an interview once, because he's Superman, right?
Right.
He gave an interview once about what his life looked like long-term and 3 or 4 days before shooting a specific shot where his shirt was off. Mm-hmm. What he put his body through for it to be up to the standards of the movie for what Superman should look like without his shirt. I was like, how do you survive that? Yeah. But in long term, how do you survive that kind of, anyway, it was just fascinating. But
yeah,
right.
So I try to like put that on my mind. And also we're all different.
Yeah.
And pregnancy, back to the Instagram people and the after 4 babies, like if you've met one person who has a body after pregnancy, you've met one person who has that body after pregnancy.
Yeah.
Because it's going to affect us all differently.
Yeah, for sure.
And quite frankly, to me, it seems bizarre and weird to think that we're going to go through this huge physiological change, emotional change, biochemical change in our body, and then think that we're going to look like we did before.
Yeah.
Like we shouldn't look like we did before.
Right.
We just gave birth. We grew a human.
Grew a human. Yes.
Inside your body.
Yes.
Which, like, it's, if you think about it, it's just so amazing, but also weird. You grew another human and then
Yeah.
you got it out by some way or another.
Right.
Whether, they cut it out or you pushed it out, it
Yeah.
comes out, and then you think that you're going to make that look that thing that you did like you did before.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
Sometimes I feel like looking back and how I process that, because so pregnancy for me, this is totally getting off topic, but pregnancy for me was great. I loved being pregnant, but my body didn't like the delivery and recovery process either time. And it was almost like I had to grieve a loss of who I was 9 months ago every single time.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. I have the opposite. So I was a terrible pregnant person, not because I wanted to be a pregnant person. I wanted to like really enjoy it, but I felt terrible the whole time.
Okay.
I was sick the whole time with my son. I was itchy the whole time, but I didn't have anything wrong with me, but I was just itchy. And it was awful. And so I know what that feels like, because you're like, I just don't want to feel like this anymore. Yeah. And then, I would have rather give birth and been in hard labor every day than be pregnant. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just like you just want to feel like yourself and your body again.
Yeah. And to grieve the process of I probably won't feel that way ever. That's how like looking back, that's how I remember it. It's almost like a grieving process of a loss, like of my body, of how it was, and then moving forward to what it is now. Right.
Right.
Like,
yep. And just having that acceptance of, well, okay, because I gained a lot of weight.
You did.
With my son, not as much with my daughter, but I mean so much weight with my son. And so I have stretch marks from that.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
I do too.
There they are.
Yeah.
And I didn't get any on my stomach either. It was more my legs.
I both for me. And then I had a mom once, an older mom, which this podcast is all women need women. 100%. Women of all ages. I think we need to be in community of women with all ages, because there's just so much we can glean from older, younger. Anyway, but I had an older woman say to me that she referred to her stretch marks as her battle scars. Yeah. And it was just, for me, it was just such an interesting reframing.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. Of how she viewed it. Like, no, that I earned it in a good way. Like, yeah. Anyway, it's a good reframing. I always remember that. So, okay. So talking about women in the second act of their life.
Yes.
And you're sitting with your clients and talking about all the things. So for like the hormonal imbalances, what does that look like talking to your clients? What's the most like challenging or the most prevalent issues, questions? Like, what do you think?
Hormones are tricky. Because I guess I'll back it up. I think that the best thing to do is to understand what hormones are.
Sure. Yeah.
So I tell my clients, and this is, like very skimming the surface. Okay. But you don't need to know all the details.
Sure.
Or the complicated science.
Sure.
Which is very complicated. It's like your internal postal system.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah. And so it's how one part of your body and your hormones carry these messages to the other part to tell it what to do, like mail, right? Mm-hmm. So somebody like the electric company puts your bill in the mail, sends it, and then you get it and you open it up and then you take action. You pay the bill. Okay, hopefully, so.
I mean, that's the goal.
Yeah. This isn't a perfect world. And in a perfect world, that's how it works in your body. So wherever it's coming from, it goes to where it's supposed to go. The action is initiated, takes place, and this system and there's no car accidents on the road. Okay. There's no congestion. The car doesn't break down. So it's all getting where it's supposed to go.
Okay. And
when you get those imbalances, that's when is there too much mail going to one house and the box is overflowing.
Okay.
Is there something wrong in the roadway and I can't get there? Is the signal not happening for the message to be, the mail to be written to begin with? Like there's all these different things that can happen along the way that cause imbalances.
Okay.
And when you're in perimenopause, what starts happening is you are really just this slow process of your ovaries not producing estradiol anymore.
Okay.
And estradiol is super important.
So is estradiol the precursor to estrogen?
No, estradiol is estrogen.
Okay.
You have 3 different types of estrogen.
Okay. So what's the third one?
You have estradiol, estrone, and estriol.
I didn't know those last 2.
Yeah.
Or the last one for sure.
And estradiol is really like, kind of like, if you will, the mob boss.
Okay.
They're sort of the most important ones. But the thing I think to just remember about estrogen, when I'm saying estrogen, I'm really just saying estradiol.
So is estrogen more like an umbrella term then?
I guess you could think about it that way.
Yeah.
Because there are different ones.
So there's like estrogen with 3 components?
Well, they're all called estrogen, but they just have different little names on the end.
And do they do all different things?
So estradiol is the thing that is the most important one.
Okay. All right.
Estrone gets produced by some of your fat cells.
Okay.
And then estriol is produced by the placenta when you are pregnant.
Oh.
So obviously you don't have that all the time.
Okay.
But really estradiol is like your girl.
Okay.
So she is the one that's super important. And everybody thinks about this hormone as just a sex hormone, right? A reproductive hormone. But this hormone is super important for women. It affects your brain health. It affects your bone health. It affects your metabolism. It's a really powerful hormone, and it's not. It's like one of the keys for thriving. And so that's why as women begin to slowly lose their estrogen production, we see things like weight, osteoporosis, brain health issues. And so it's not so much about what happens when you get out of balance or, an imbalance, but more making sure that things are coming out at the right time and then going down at the right time and then supporting your body through that process. Because every month, unless you're postmenopausal, every single month, you're having a constant up and down of your hormones.
For sure.
It's supposed to be like that.
Right.
So it's never this like static thing. Oh, this is always the numbers. This is how they should be all month. It's really just supporting the system and knowing what to do at the right times to make sure that it's operating the right way. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So speaking of like body systems, other than what we normally think of sex hormones, so when your estrogen levels lower and you start noticing things of like change in your bone health and brain health. So so osteoporosis, you said, would be, is there anything else with bone health that you would notice changes?
I mean, there could be. There's just so many things. It's really hard to say, but those big ones are sort of like the really well understood consequences of losing estrogen. So
osteoporosis would be for bone health. What about brain health? What are some?
Yeah. So your body needs estrogen for females for the brain. And it has to do with, and I am not a neuroscientist, so my understanding is that it has to do with how it assists in the uptake of glucose in the brain.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I'd have to do more research on that to be really speaking on that eloquently and properly. But that is my shallow understanding.
Sure. And that's fine.
And then you also have your estrobolome, which is in your gut.
Okay.
And that's how loss of estrogen can affect your gut health too.
And what is that? How does that present?
Any sort of digestive issues.
Okay.
Like gas, bloating, leaky gut.
I was going to say, would malabsorption be in there too, or?
Could be if you're having leaky gut, but that's like a whole nother.
Yeah. And that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with estrogen. That could be something else.
That could be something else.
Yeah.
And that's the tricky part of all this, right?
Yeah.
Is like, what is it? Is it chicken or is it the egg?
Right.
Is it, if it's my stomach bothering me because I have a food intolerance,
Right.
or am I in perimenopause?
Right.
Am I tired because I have a nutrient deficiency, or am I in perimenopause?
Yeah. Or am I just do I not have good sleep hygiene? Like
Right.
it could be, so it's.
Which is something else perimenopause can affect.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
So going back to the rapid fire questions, there was a few symptoms that I wasn't prepared for because, the whole premise of why I wanted to do this podcast is no one talks about this kind of stuff.
Nobody talks about any of it.
We only want to talk about good and positive and for all things, for how your kids are doing, for how your marriage is doing. We only want to talk about the good, but we don't want to talk about the challenges of like, okay, but like, that's not my story. So what's wrong with me, right? Because what you're saying is not my story. So a couple of the perimenopausal symptoms that I wasn't prepared for was some GI issues. I didn't know. And then I have other things going on too, but like it definitely exacerbated for perimenopause. And then just like joint pain. I didn't know that was a thing. Like I thought it was just like, oh, I can't really, because, I enjoy working out. So I was doing like a CrossFit type work, which really isn't actually good for your body, but whatever. For years, for like probably 3 or 4 years, I was doing like more like, high intensity interval training or whatever. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. My joints killed.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just, okay, well, I'm just aging out of these kind of exercises, which might be true. Like 100%, it might be true. But the joint pain, and then just like waking up, like this is my life when I wake up. I wake up, I put my feet on the side of the bed, and I just like take stock. Like
take a minute
before I stand up. And so, sometimes it's like, oh, I'm fine. And other times I'm like, ooh, that's new. All I did was sleep and my back hurts. Anyway, but yeah, so it's just crazy. You just don't have an understanding of how much estrogen affects your body. I don't think there's a cell that it doesn't touch.
No, it's the whole body.
It's the whole body. Yeah.
A lot of women complain about, and not to me, but I've heard other doctors speaking on how some of their patients, complain about their eyesight getting worse.
Oh.
And then after menopause, the day of menopause, and then you become postmenopausal and everything kind of slowly finds its new threshold, their eyesight stabilizes.
But it doesn't get better. It just doesn't get worse.
Now they didn't specify whether it got better, but they just said it like, they noticed that the changes or they were struggling with, like,
it just kind of normalized.
It normalized.
So to go back to what you just said, because we talked about this in a pre-interview, that it stunned me a little bit. Like
I could tell.
I was not prepared for it.
I was like, silent. What do I do?
I was like,
do I feel the awkward silence? What do I say?
And silence for me, if you know me, isn't really common. So explain to me what you just said about menopause.
So technically, if we're going on technicalities, menopause is a single point in time.
Like one day.
Yes. It's your menopause birthday, I suppose. And I know that will throw people off for a loop.
Sure.
As it did in our conversation. And you can Google this or, ask ChatGPT, because who doesn't use that right now? But menopause is one day. It is the day that you've gone 12 months without a menstrual cycle. And that day, that 12-month day, when that happens.
So the day after the 12 months is technically your menopause day.
Yeah. And then you're now no longer in menopause. You would be considered postmenopausal.
So what happens, because some of my friends have gone through this, they've gone a year with no period. So they think they're whatever, they said in menopause or whatever, but now it'd be postmenopause. But then the period came back for like a couple months or whatever. So how does that work?
That's when I would say you need to go see your doctor.
Okay. Okay.
Because, that could be something that you want to get checked out.
Okay. So that's not typical, normal, or whatever I don't know if there is a normal, but.
I don't know that there is a normal either. I don't know that, and this is where all that language gets confusing.
Yeah.
It's not common, but it's also not
Uncommon. Yeah.
So it's probably not common that happens.
Yeah.
But if you've gone a whole year without having a menstrual cycle and then all of a sudden you start bleeding again, not that you shouldn't be getting regular checkups with your doctor in this period of time.
Of course.
And you always need to be under the care of a licensed healthcare practitioner.
Yes.
Please. That's definitely something that would need to be addressed.
Okay. No, that's helpful because I feel like there is a spectrum of normal or expected outcomes, whatever you want to call it. I don't really know. So it's helpful to know when it's outside of that.
And some of this actually is very logical that we don't know because, and I think we talked a little bit about this, but historically speaking, only 4% of R&D goes to female issues.
Okay.
And of those, primarily the things studied are pregnancy, which I'm not saying these aren't important to know about.
Sure.
But 4% is a small number. And of the 4%, it's usually pregnancy, lactation, and infertility.
Okay.
And not that we don't want answers to those things, but of that, because that number is only 4%, and those are the three things, there's this big, giant black hole of the life cycle of a female and their reproductive and their hormones has gotten little to no attention.
Sure.
And so, there's not a lot of clear clinical scientific data on X, Y, and Z in this postmenopausal phase because it hasn't been thoroughly studied.
Right. Yeah.